All right, good evening. The time being 7 p.m., all members of the planning board being present, call this meeting to order. Just in case anybody in the audience is here for 485 Main Street, the petitioner has requested that that be continued to our next meeting, so we won't hear anything on that tonight. If that's what you're here for, you are free to go. You will miss nothing. With that, we'll go to agenda item A, which is approval of minutes from our November 18th meeting.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for November 18th, 2024.
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passed unanimously. Moving on to agenda item B, committee reports, administrative actions. Any committee reports any members wish to make at this time?
All set, Mr. Chairman.
All right, seeing none, we'll move to the planner's report. Ms. Lauder?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First item of note, we don't have any new hearings scheduled for our January 13th meeting, so it'll be all continued business. Next item, just quickly, a reminder that the Tewksbury Community Market will be holding 2 more indoor markets at the Senior Center at 175 Chandler Street, scheduled for January 9th and February 13th. The time is 4 to 7 p.m. and will feature many of the same vendors as at the summer market. And you can visit tewksburymarket.com for more details on that. Next item, I want to acknowledge a wrap-up of our first ever Tewksbury Restaurant Week. It ran from Saturday, November 30th through Saturday, December 7th. It was a way for the town to promote local businesses and introduce residents to new food establishments in town. I was working with the businesses who participated on different ideas for new programs, and hopefully we'll be doing more things like that in the future. Next item, Friday, December 6th. Was the annual tree lighting and holiday celebration out on the Common. By marshmallow count alone, we saw at least 500 people here, and attendees got to have hot cocoa with the police, roast marshmallows, and of course meet Santa after he came in over on the fire truck. And it was put on with the cooperation of the Wilmington-Tewksbury Chamber of Commerce, the Tewksbury Congregational Church, Tewksbury Funeral Home, and the Garden Club to make it a great success. A little different kind of exciting, an update on the ADUs by right. The state issued draft regulations under 760 CMR 71 for protected accessory dwelling units. I attached the draft regulations for the board's reference. And just a reminder that an accessory dwelling unit is defined in Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 3, as amended to be a, quote, self-contained housing unit inclusive of sleeping, cooking, and sanitary facilities, subject to otherwise applicable dimensional and parking requirements that maintain separate entrances, either directly from the outside or through an entry hall. And another important item is not larger than in gross floor area than half the gross floor area of the principal dwelling or 900 square feet, whichever is smaller, and is subject to additional restrictions as may be imposed by the municipality. Overall, no changes to our existing bylaw appear to be necessary in order for this to come online. Staff are going to be working to review the proposed regulations and generate clarifying questions that will be submitted in conjunction with other NIMCOG communities to aid in the town's successful administration of this, basically this new type of building permit. The planning board will continue to see special permits for family suites as that special permit granting authority, and the only additional responsibility as a result of this legislation is that the planning board will now also be the special permit granting authority for any property owner pursuing more than one accessory dwelling unit per lot, and its staff's understanding that the existing bulk dimensional requirements, front and side setbacks, lot coverage, et cetera, will continue to remain in effect, and any deviations would still require relief from the Board of Appeals. That was a lot of information. I don't expect any questions right now, but I wanted you folks to be included. The definition of accessory dwelling unit has taken effect. The ability to apply to construct them by right takes effect February 2nd, 2025. So there's a comment period that is running from December 20th through January 10th. And I've been logged on to pretty much every single, ADU regulation discussion between the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, the Mass Building Commissioners Association, just to try to get, a full understanding of how this is going to work. And if any major deviations turn up, I will be sure to let the board know. But it should be a pretty easy lift as far as permitting is concerned. Last item, this is really more just an FYI for the building community because it really doesn't affect any level of enforcement or permit granting at the town's level, but just wanted to touch on large building energy reporting regulations. On November 18th, the Department of Environmental my goodness, DOER, filed amended draft regulations with the House and Senate for review of its large building energy reporting program. And this program requires disclosure of energy information for buildings over 20,000 square feet statewide. It requires owners or agents of covered buildings to report usage of additional energy sources such as oil, propane, wood, and on-site renewable energy generation. And that's because they largely have relationships with the utility companies and already have the electric and gas data at that point. DOER will post the final covered buildings list, notifying the parties of which buildings' energy must be reported by March 30th of '25. The first reports of energy usage are going to be due on June 30th, and DOER will publish the first disclosure reports on the 31st of next year. And for anyone who is really interested and just super jazzed about this topic, DOER is hosting a virtual listening session on Wednesday, January 29th at 11 a.m., and registration is through the DOER website.
All right. Thank you very much.
Can I ask a question on that, Mr. Chairman? Thank you. Ms. Louder, I was just curious as to when they say the amended draft regulation, so that's the amended, what bill is that? Is that the H5122 stretch code bill?
I don't have the exact citation, but I imagine it's related to that. I'd have to look that up.
Okay, because, doing a little research, it looks like that the bill, if it's the same bill, if it's the same amendment, I should say, if it's an stretch energy code amendment, recommendations from DOER filed in the legislature under bill number H5122 was not passed or approved out of the Telecommunications, Utilities, and Energy Committee.
So I just
Talking about the same thing there?
So I just pulled up, it's actually part of the Act of Driving Clean Energy and Offshore Wind, the Acts of 2022, Chapter 179, Section 41.
Okay, so the different apple and an orange there?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. It would be interesting to keep following that up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Moving on to Agenda Item C, 821 Main Street, special permit. We have a motion to waive the public reading.
So moved.
The motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimous. Gentlemen, once you get settled, your names for the record, and the floor is yours.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, David Plunkett, represent the applicant before you here tonight. With me at the table is Jim Hanley from Civil Design Consultants, Inc., who's the engineering firm in charge of the site. Before I turn it over to Jim, just a general synopsis of this lot. This is the old French's Restaurant lot, which everyone in the town is probably very well aware of. For many years, it was a great go-to location for, for lunch, and did a lot of work in the town, and was a go-to place for many, many years. But it's now a situation where it's time for improvement, upgrade, and replacement. And that's basically what we have here right now. And that's the purpose of the bylaws as created. Specifically, we're here under Section 5.3.3 for approval of this site plan and special permit from the board to allow the 7,500 square foot lot size, as a minimum lot size, and the proposal is 3 lots. And it will make use of the location. There will be 2 lots in which we'll have a duplex on each, and 1 lot with a single family for a total of 5 dwelling units. It's going to be a major improvement to the site. It's going to be a major improvement to the town's Route 38 corridor, which for many years the town has been trying to upgrade and improve. And it's consistent with what was envisioned under the passing of the bylaw. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jim, and he'll run through the plan with you.
Good evening. Jim Hanley, Civil Design Consultant. So just kind of jumping off where David left. So I got a couple of minutes here worth of presentation. I'll kind of walk you through existing conditions and proposed improvements, but I also kind of want to remind the board and the public at large that we did spend some time, I think it was in the summer of 2022, coming to the board with a couple of different concept plans. We got your feedback. And so we have put quite a bit of time into this project. So on the screen in front of you right now, this is just kind of the overview of the project, so you kind of get a sense for where it is on Main Street. You can see that we have Nelson Avenue to the west, Newton Avenue to the east, and Main Street to the north. We're relatively close, but not abutting the district line. We have the Village Residential District, one lot over, and then that's R40 on the other side. So as David mentioned, we're here tonight for a special permit filed under Section 5.3.2. And this is simply the dimensional compliance table in the zoning ordinance. And if you were to look at footnote E, it specifies that the minimum lot area may be reduced to a minimum of 7,500 square feet by special permit. So that's why we're in front of you here tonight. The lot in question is approximately 30,000 square feet. We have 190 feet of frontage on Main Street. We have 141 feet of frontage on Nelson Avenue and 150 feet of frontage on Newton Avenue. What's on the lot right now is a vacant restaurant and a single-family residence, both of which were originally constructed in the 1930s. So as David mentioned, these are well beyond their useful life at this point. You probably have seen it. It was used as a staging area for the DOT improvements along 38 over the last year and a half or so. So just kind of walking you through and also the public through what we proposed and came to in a preliminary format in April of 2022, and then I think we were back in September of 22, but we essentially tried to put a development in here that was consistent with kind of the mixed-use development feel that has been approved up and down 38. This plan in particular had 8 townhouse units in somewhere around 1,000 square feet of commercial, give or take. We presented this one to the board, and then we also looked at an alternative here, which would have had 2 buildings, mixed-use commercials on the first floor, and then having a second and third floor with residential units. This actually, as proposed, had about 2,500 feet of commercial and 15 units. I think it's fair to say that the feedback we got from the board was to come back with something maybe a little bit less dense, a little bit more parking, and try to take that feedback and work with that. So that's what we've done. So in front of you right now is the cover sheet of our plan, and this kind of gives you a sense for exactly what we're proposing and how it looks relative to the other developments. So what we're proposing to do is raise the existing single-family and the vacant restaurant and replace those uses and buildings with 2 duplexes. Those 2 duplexes would front on Main Street, units 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then 1 single family that would front on Newton Street. I'll have you just kind of point out here that we know the town and state has invested a ton of money in Main Street, so we tried to make a point of not disturbing what's been recently built there. And so you see that access for each of the 3 lots comes off of the side streets. And that's going to hold true as well for the utility connections that we're proposing. So water, sewer, and gas will come off of Nelson and or Newton Street, depending on which unit it is. So to really kind of recap this whole thing, we have a 30,000 square foot lot. We're looking to cut it up into 3 lots. the smallest of which will be 9,094 square feet, the largest of which will be 11,170 square feet, where you can go as low as 7,500. We'll have 2 duplex lots and 1 single family for 5 lots. All other dimensional requirements, including frontage, side setbacks, front setbacks, rear setbacks, all other dimensional setbacks are met. You might be able to visualize just how much pavement and impervious surface is on the lot right now due to the parking that was provided for the restaurant. We actually have a reduction of 38% impervious surface on the lot. So we're going to knock down, we're going to put a lot of landscaping in, cut out a lot of pavement. No proposed improvements on 38. And with that being said, I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you might have.
All right, let's start with Mr. Lazardi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So yeah, kind of looking at these plans and then looking at the kind of the architectural renders, is it kind of the side facing 38 is the one with the 4 dormers on the top of each unit there? Mm-hmm. Okay. And is it
I'm going to try to find these as you speak here.
And then kind of, I see a garage there, but that's just for the
Single family,
correct?
Correct, yep.
Okay.
So this set of elevations is specific to the single family, so you can see the 2 garages. And then if we scroll down a bit, we'll get eventually to the front view from 38 of the duplex, of each of the duplexes.
Okay. And so parking for the duplex, those would just be in the driveways?
Just in the driveways, there's no garages proposed, correct?
All right. And then I think the only other thing I noticed, it didn't look like there were sidewalks going down the side streets there. Is that?
Yeah, so that's a good catch, and DPW also caught that as well. But we went back through, and I just kind of wanted to point this out to the board. Section 6.1.11 of the zoning is specific to the requirements for parking, for sidewalks, rather. And it specifies that those requirements are for business, industrial, or other non-residential parking facilities. So there's already obviously a brand-new concrete sidewalk on 38.
Yep.
But that sidewalk specific to Nelson and Newton is not required for residential uses.
Okay. All right. With that, I think that's all my questions.
Mr. Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of quick questions here. I do see a detail for plantings, and I see some detail on the layout and materials plan there. I don't really see like a landscape plan. So, I realize a couple of things about that. I think probably as long as we're not creating a line of sight issue with that, I think that needs to be, we need to be pretty positive about that when you're pulling out of those driveways, that you don't have to be peeking around plantings there. But also, I think it would be a good idea to do maybe some type of an overlay where you have a small lot and a number of underground utilities there, so that we don't end up having to relocate plantings at the 11th hour and 50 minute there, so that we have a pretty fair idea, and so that the neighbors have a pretty fair idea what you're going to have for planting. Because we've had that issue before where trees weren't able to be planted because it conflicted with an underground utility. So I think you want to be pretty clear about that.
Okay.
If you would. Another thing is that, and don't get me wrong, I think it's a pretty nice layout, and I think there's some pretty decent-looking housing there. But, they're all going to have outside lights on them, too. And if I'm not mistaken, so those are controlled by the HOA after completion and so on and so forth. But today's lighting is all LED, and you can drive down Main Street any night, and some of these lights are going to be shining in your face. And I think we want to just make sure that we're not creating any light trespass there unnecessarily to either the neighborhood or, out beyond the curb area. Because those lights are pretty bright. Sometimes they only going to be out of adjustment a few inches, and you have a problem there, and you're blinding somebody. And let me see, was there anything else on that I had? Just give me one sec here. And one or two other things I wanted to ask you. You were saying that there was, one of the units, a single, looks like it has a two-car garage, right?
Correct, yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
I really think that that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Fratelli?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of questions. I like the design. I like this plan versus the old plan myself. I think it cuts down on the density as well a little bit, so. So I didn't see the number of parking spots that you're providing here for each unit.
So,
No garages in the front, two duplexes, right?
correct.
Okay.
But the layout has been designed to allow for each duplex to have 2 spaces each. So those would be 4 spaces. So you can see on your screen there, that's 20 feet wide by 20 by 20 essentially, which exceeds the minimum requirements for 2 spaces. And you have that 2 times, right? So you have, basically, the way it's been configured is one, say Unit 1 will park on the left-hand side, and Unit 2 will park directly below Unit 1, and then vice versa for Units 3 and 4. So the duplex will each have 2, right? So there'll be 4 per lot, 8 altogether for the duplexes.
Okay.
And then the single-family residential is going to have 2 in the garages, and then probably room for 4, but certainly room for 2 more.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how many bedrooms, Mr. Hanley, in the single family?
It's a good question. Yeah, I think I can find out for you.
I didn't see it anywhere in the plans. but-
Yeah. Bedroom 1. 3. Okay, 3 bedrooms, thank you.
So 3, okay. All right, so 5 units, which is going to be a total of 15 bedrooms, correct? For each duplex is having 3 bedrooms each, correct?
The duplexes. Okay.
The plans showed 3 bedrooms in each unit.
Okay. Okay, so that's
15?
3 times 4 is 12 plus 3 is 15, yeah.
Okay. So do you think the parking is going to be sufficient for that? That's one of my questions and concerns. I mean, if you have young kids,
Yeah.
okay, maybe okay.
Yeah.
But if you're having 3 bedrooms and you have a husband and wife and 2, teenagers or something,
So
there's 3 cars possibly for each floor.
I think for the single-family residential, I think it's clear that we have plenty,
Yeah, that
right?
should
We
be
have 2, and then we have enough for 4 on the driveway itself. We have 3 bedrooms for each duplex. We have 2 spaces per duplex. So the idea, the concern that you have would be that each bedroom would require a,
Well, no, I'm just thinking if you have a 3-bedroom unit on the second floor,
yeah,
right, 3-bedroom on the first floor,
yeah,
that's 6 bedrooms. So if you have a husband and a wife taking up one car,
yeah,
maybe 2 cars,
yeah.
and you have teenage kids coming in that have cars each, where do they park in the event there's a problem of trying to park? If
Yeah, right.
that's the scenario, I mean, if
Right.
you have younger kids, then it's not an issue, but they're
So,
also going to be parking on Nelson Ave or Newton Ave, one or the other, on the street.
potentially, yeah, potentially they would, but there, if you just were to look at the layout, there is more room than what would be required. They physically could fit probably at least 2 more cars
Okay.
into each of the duplex, if they had to. It's not the intent, it's not what the bylaw requires, but in practice, if they had to, they could fit that.
Okay. So are these going to be rentals or condominiums or
For sale,
for sale?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
All right. All right. And the other issue, not an issue, but if they're coming in with 3 bedrooms, then there may be kids involved that are going to be going to school, possibly, so, I mean, I'm not that I'm against the whole project, because I'm not, but just to be aware of that issue, so. Now, did I see no waivers requested here at all?
Yeah, I don't think we have any waivers at all on this one, other than, right, what we're here for tonight, which is a reduction in the lot size, right? That's correct, right? Yeah.
Okay, yeah, just speaking out loud, but I'm all set for now,
yeah.
thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think my colleagues have pretty much hit all the highlights here, so I'll echo that. I really like the lighter version of the plan as opposed to some of the more denser schemes that were originally proposed. I do think parking could someday become an issue, but as long as the owners are conscientious of their neighbors and not parking in, neighboring parking lots or blocking their driveways, hopefully the neighbors are getting along in the Tewksbury way and they work out their issues, and maybe if someone has a spot to spare, they can let someone else use it. So I guess my only question is are the spots going to be assigned to each unit, that 2 for unit 1, 2 for unit 2, or is it going to be sort of a
free-for-all?
Well, potentially, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure we've gotten down the road that far. If that's something that the board would want to see, then I think we could certainly consider it, but.
I mean, it would be typical with a duplex like that there'd be exclusive rights assigned to each unit specifically for parking. And
I think it would certainly help to sell them,
Yeah.
in
It would-
the
it
sale
would
of the
only-
units.
For marketability of the units, it would only make sense that, that type of, condition would be part and parcel of the, master deed that would be recorded for sending it up, so.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Plunkett. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I mean, the only thing that was, at first I was questioning was the driveways set up, because they put so many driveways together on Newton, but since Newton's not Marshall, and it's not a full cut-through where people are just going down it to get to somewhere else constantly, I'm not as concerned about people pulling in and out of there as I otherwise would be. I mean, compared to the first, or the initial proposals, obviously it's a lot less dense, and with the front, the front townhouses, then, they fit what we've done out on Main Street, and then having a single rather than another, tandem on the inner portion leading to where there's more single-family housing, seems to fit too. So I have no real issue with the setup or the layout with the way it is right now. So with that, I'll open up to the audience. Anyone in the audience with any questions, comments, or concerns on this?
Mr. Chairman, may I ask one more quick question? 2 more, actually. Jim, is the paved surface, the impervious surface, because everybody seems to be concerned about, kind of maxing out on parking there, is the reason that you don't extend that, is it just because it's just not thought of in the plan, or do you have to maintain a certain?
No, it's not that it's not as if we're up against the existing amount of pavement that's out there.
It seems like you could just extend those 2 driveways perpendicular to Newton and Nelson and get yourself a couple more parking spaces there for a guest. an extra
Yeah,
driver, whatever, that would really alleviate that issue there, or even just for a bigger turnaround area, because it does seem like you're going to, for cars sort of trying to turn around and back out or whatever. You don't want people backing out onto the street. You want to give them enough room to turn around. And, that's just a thought. That's one thing I'm thinking. And then the one question that I did forget to ask. Right now, there are curb cuts on Route 38. Are those getting closed, or are there no curb cuts on 38?
There's none. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And that's all I have. Thanks again, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so with that, we have it open to the audience. Anyone in the audience with questions, comments, or concerns? Going once, twice, bring it back to the board. What is the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion to close the public hearing?
Ms. Lauder, are we done? Is there anything outstanding that we didn't see? Because I didn't see anything.
No.
And this is a little different than normal. because
Right,
we're only
so as
really-
Mr. Hanley and Mr. Plunkett had mentioned, these are considered residential uses, being single and two-family dwellings, each only requiring a driveway to accommodate 2 parking spaces. Again, they may choose to adjust that a little bit to allow for a little more wiggle room. However, they're just going to be held to the same physical alteration permit requirements, utility tie-in requirements that any single-family home would be. So this board is not charged with anything beyond allowing for the reduction in the minimum lot size.
So in this case, it's really just to approve the lot sizes as
Correct.
requested, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman, before you close the public hearing aspect of it, a question in regards to the approval of the special permit for the creation of the 3 lots. Would we have the ability to submit to the board, if it's so approved, a plan with the actual meets and bounds dimensions on it, so it would be a plan that's recordable in format? And that way that would be our plan of record for the
Right.
future.
I would recommend that once the special permit is cleared its appeal period, should it do so, then you could generate a subdivision plan at that time, bring it to the board for endorsement, and we can kind of go from there.
So you'd still want to handle it as like an A&R type?
Yeah, because we want to see, an actual, I think it would be cleaner to have a record of just creating the lots that way.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, so with that, we had a motion to close the public hearing. Do I have a second?
Second?
Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries. As to the special permit.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the special permit to allow the reduction of lot size to a minimum of 7,500 square feet.
Are we doing it that way, or are we doing it as submitted? Because that's not the size of these lots. Are we doing them?
It's still allowing for a reduction to 7,500.
Okay, all right, okay.
Because they're all varying sizes.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
fine. All right. All right, so we have a motion made. Do we have a second?
Second?
Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Good luck.
Great, thank you.
Brings us to Agenda Item D, 1628 and 1636 Shawshene Street. This is for site plan review, special permit, and land disturbance permit. Do I have a motion to waive the public reading?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Once everybody's settled, or are there more somebodies, or is it just yourself?
Nope, there are multiple somebodies.
All right, after this, everybody's settled, if you just give your names to the record, the floor will be yours.
Yes. Start making introductions while we finally get settled. My name is Carrie Armstrong. I represent the applicant. Mark Johnson of my office is here as well. The applicant is seated to my
Pull
right.
that microphone a little closer to you.
Sure. Is that better? Okay. I'll start over. My name is Carrie Armstrong with Johnson & Borenstein. Mark Johnson of Johnson & Borenstein is here as well. We represent the applicant on this petition, Bob Zwicker, who's sitting to my right. And we also have Andy, I apologize, I'm going to mispronounce
Andy
you.
Jasek, Dana Perkins, engineer for the project.
All right? Floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening. So we are here on an application for a special permit for the use of the property as the sale of lumber, farm supplies, and similar materials. This parcel is actually made up of 2 adjacent parcels, 1628 and 1636 Shawshene Street. The first parcel, which is 1628, which was referenced as parcel A in our materials, is currently improved by a vacant garage with a large area of land behind that. The adjacent parcel, which we have referred to as parcel B, is currently improved by a single-family residence, which is a non-complying use in the district. This is an I-1 industrial district that is an existing an existing use there. So what the applicant is seeking to do is to convert the use of those two parcels to accommodate this, this landscaping material sales yard. The existing single-family residence will be converted into administrative office space. There's an existing garage that will, at least initially, also be used for office space, and then the land behind will be used for the storage of the different materials. So loam, mulch, stone, those type of materials, which will be brought in and will be stored in concrete, temporary concrete, I'm sorry, not temporary, but movable concrete bays. So that is an existing business that my client currently runs, and he's looking to relocate into Tewksbury. Essentially, the land and the structures are going to stay as is. We're not looking to make any real structural changes other than to set the bins up. The interior of the residence will be converted into office space. So it's essentially an existing parcel with existing structures. We're just looking to change the use at this time. To give the board a little bit of an idea of what that business might look like, the deliveries are brought into the property. Materials are dropped off. Those deliveries are typically made off hours, even into the evening. My client then is going to use different equipment to move those around. They'll be stored, and then they sell them to the public. They sell to both contractors and to consumers. A large majority of the business is conducted online. So someone, a contractor or even a homeowner, would go online, choose their materials, the amount that they wanted to purchase. My client's staff would then load their trucks up for the day, send them out, and make most of their deliveries. There are contractors and general public consumers who would be also able to come to the site and purchase those materials directly, whether they order them online and pick them up, or whether they were to drive in and say, I'm looking for however many yards of stone, bring their own pickup trucks in and purchase those materials on site there. Right now, they're currently at roughly 4 to 7 employees on site. That varies depending on the season. So obviously things like mulch, stone, loom, those kinds of things are going to be busier in the spring and into the summer, less so in the winter time. So there are some seasonal, potential seasonal supplements to the sales, which would include sales of firewood, and then they also provide some snow plowing services. So this use here is a less intense use than what was previously there. I myself am not familiar with the property. I've looked at some pictures, and I've been told, as my understanding is, that it was previously used for an automotive salvage yard. That is all cleared out now. This will be more natural materials that are being used in the way that we've described. This is going to bring a new business into Tewksbury, consistent with the purpose of the zoning bylaw, which is to bring and maintain businesses in the town. So I think that is the majority of the presentation that I wanted to provide. I am going to ask Andy to step in and talk a little bit about work that they've already done with the Conservation Commission.
Yeah, so,
Want to pull that microphone closer to you?
yeah, once again, Andy Pajasic from Dana Perkins. The site is surrounded by existing wetlands. There's an exterior fence where the auto salvage yard was basically using the whole site for the last, 70 years or so. Once the cars were pulled out and the site sitting vacant, the wetlands has creeped onto the site. So just the way the calendar has fallen the last few months, we've actually already had 2 conservation meetings before this first meeting here in front of you, just with deadlines and the way the schedule worked out. So currently showing the plan that we submitted to you. This was also the original plan we submitted to conservation. They were not very enthusiastic about trying to go in and fill in some of the wetlands that have creeped on the site. So we have submitted a revised plan to conservation already. That kind of follows the existing wetlands line, so we can basically eliminate any fill of wetlands on site. We presented that to them last week. They were much more excited about that proposal. So the plan is a little bit different, but the use is still the same. There's still bins. The purpose of the bins, just so the board has an idea, the exterior bin line that runs along the wetlands, that's going to be permanent. And so that helps create a permanent barrier between the site and the wetlands, so no encroachment will come on or go into the wetlands. The bins kind of shown in the interior, those are able to be moved around. They're adjusted for the seasons. So like we discussed, in spring, you have a lot of mulch, so the mulch bins get big. As the season goes on, you don't need as much room for the mulch, so those are all stackable concrete bins that can be kind of squeezed. But the line along the wetlands will be permanent. Yeah, and that's it. We received peer review comments last week. So we haven't had a chance to address those, but we at least wanted to present the plan to you and get your initial comments.
All right. Anything else?
Yes, in the initial introduction, I mentioned the special permit, but we are also seeking site plan review as well as the land disturbance permit.
Yep.
That's all part of the application.
Okay. Start with Mr. Champa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few things. You addressed the fact that you haven't had a chance to go through the peer review comments, but a couple of things that were of special note was oil in the soil on site, remediation and whatnot, and that sort of piqued my interest not only because of the proximity to the wetlands, but the possibility of it seeping up into the materials and then possibly ending up in, some nice person's garden or, mulch beds.
You mean spreading it throughout town?
Excuse me?
Spreading it throughout town?
Hopefully not. So is that something where you've dealt with that previously and?
Yeah, so when the site was shut down, or, when they closed the shop, there was extensive environmental testing done on site. The site has an existing AUL for the entire yard that essentially limits, some of the uses that are available for the site. It's a very limited AUL as far as those go. There was no concern about the oil and gas, which you would expect to be in the ground out there. It was a salvage yard for 70 years, but there was no concern about it like spreading into the groundwater or anything like that. So the limits on the site are essentially that they want the soil to remain on site, try to limit digging, and then some limits on use, things like, they don't want daycares on site, no housing, not that it's allowed by zoning anyway, no small kids running around eating the dirt.
Sure.
But what we're proposing, the exterior wall will also kind of act as a barrier. We are going to bring in between 6 inches to 1.5 feet of loam, or fill rather, and then we're going to hard pack it with asphalt millings on top. So we're proposing, no digging really on site. We're going to install a stone trench along the exterior of the bins for stormwater purposes. So that might require some digging, but it's material that will stay on site for fill and then be buried, and then a hard cap on the entire site. This is also helpful for the landscape supply to have this hard cap. They don't want dirt being mixed in with the mulch either. Maybe not for environmental reasons, but you don't want that stuff mixed in with your mulch and stuff like that. So that's how we're planning on preventing that.
And can I just add something too? The two main areas where there were some issues with like the oil or anything like that, one of them is in the bottom left in the wetlands where has been taken over by the wetlands, so that is not going to be on our property anymore that we're using. And the other is to the left of the garage bay, where I think they would work on removing some of the fluids and whatnot. Also not an area we plan on having materials. So we're not really going to be on top of those two main areas that they had the concerns on.
Okay. Thank you. The few other things, just, again, there's a lot here. I'm not going to run through the entire thing, but accessible parking spaces, bike racks, things like that. I know you're probably not expecting any of your customers to bring in a bike. However, your employees, we've had this discussion many, many times. Mr. Duffy and I are especially pro bike rack. So that was something we would like to see. Again, in the hopes that if you have an employee that is interested in biking to work. And then I think there was one other one that, and I don't know if the peer review engineer was misinterpreting something, but it said that on item 15, there was significant work proposed within the 25-foot no disturb zone. Is that something that you see here, or is that something that maybe they're misinterpreting your intent?
Not only that, there was, on this revision, there was significant work proposed within the actual wetlands. So what we've done with conservation is we've eliminated all work within the wetlands, but we are currently seeking a waiver from the 25-foot no disturb zone, which the board seems favorable to.
Okay, that's all I have at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Fattalia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So did I hear you say you have 47 employees?
427.
427, okay. I'm like, 47 employees, that's a big workforce there, So
Yeah.
I've been to the site in Andover, and
We need a lot of bike racks.
yeah, no, well, that creates a lot of traffic, too.
Yes.
Because that was my concern about traffic. I mean, if you're having 47 employees with all operating trucks in and out, you're going to create a pretty substantial traffic issue there. So 4 to 7 is manageable, and that's great. I love to see new business coming into Tewksbury. I know you guys are in Andover now, correct?
Correct.
I don't think there's any other business like yours in town, I don't believe, that offers.
Not necessarily. We're very unique. We're kind of new age to the industry where we are online. We don't actively answer phones and take orders and things like that, so we do a lot of online marketing. As far as the business goes, as far as the delivery end of it goes and the amount of trucks, I don't really see a whole lot of growth in that. You can only kind of handle so much as a seasonal business. So on the backside, I'm working on developing just an online platform to kind of sell,
Sure.
other places, but not have to deliver them personally. So I feel the business is kind of where we're going to be as far as that.
So with that being said, how many trucks do you say come in and out every day?
So on the busiest days during the peak season, which is very end of April to like the first week of June, that's when we'll run 7 trucks.
7?
6 of them will do deliveries.
Okay.
And we have 1 triaxle that will kind of bring in some products, bring the loom into our yard and a few things like that. What makes us different than a lot of other companies is all of our trucks besides the triaxle has divider gates in it. So when we load up 2 to 3 deliveries per truck.
Right.
So we're not coming back every hour and refilling. We're going out and making a couple runs.
Sure.
So it really cuts down on the amount of times we come and go, which is
Okay.
obviously
So
efficient.
how about deliveries to your site? How many trucks you come in to deliver to your site?
During the mulch season, that's when we're busiest, and the mulch generally comes overnight, in the middle of the night.
Okay.
And they love that because obviously they can get more deliveries done. They get a high demand. We have a couple products that come like out of Maine, so they just can't come down in the middle of the night, so those will show up in the morning.
Okay.
But most of the deliveries are overnight.
Okay.
The other products, we bring in, we will get dump trailers, but they don't move. The mulch is like 60% of our business.
Right.
So it's just not quite as frequent with those coming in.
Okay. So you see where I'm going here? I'm just trying to find out the type of traffic you got coming in and going out.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's a busy street, but, you know, with that few deliveries and pickups and so forth going out and in, it's not going to affect the area that much. So
Correct.
I'm glad to hear that. So,
Yeah, and the big trucks, so they really kind of get in the way if they're there while we're
Right.
trying to work. So we do everything we can to eliminate that.
Okay. I am concerned about the contamination on site, and I'm sure the Conservation Commission is as well, you know, so I can understand their concerns. So you will not be digging up any of that dirt and moving it, it'll all stay on site, and you'll be filling it on top with.
Correct. It will all stay on site. There might be some minor digging to get a stone trench in for stormwater purposes, but any material that's dug out for the trench, which is really minimal anyway, will be used kind of as fill across the site before we bring in clean fill on top of that, and then a hard pack on top of that.
There's no, and none of that would come up through what you're filling in, correct? No?
No.
No.
Okay.
And we've had to go through just the bank and talking with Common Sense, who did all the reports and stuff. You know, my same thought process was, oh my God, it's contaminated soil. And it's really not. Obviously, I'm not downplaying that it's there.
Yeah.
But I was quite surprised at how minimal of an impact it actually has to the soil. It was just those two main areas that were above and beyond.
I'm not going to go into the TEC comments because there's a ton of them, so I figured you'll have time to do that in the next couple of weeks, whatever. So my last issue was the fact, is there a piece of land that the town owns supposedly there? Has that been resolved?
In that front corner.
Yeah, there's a corner of the parking area that has just been being used because it's there. It's been there I don't know how many years, but that doesn't really affect my use or us putting in parking spaces or anything like that, so.
Okay, it came up in this report, that's why I brought it up. So,
Yeah.
So you'll
Yeah.
have to address that at some point, I think, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not being used for parking, it's not being used as part of the operation,
Okay,
but it has been used by prior owners.
okay, all right, good. All set, Mr. Chairman.
Mr.
Thank you.
Duffy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So a couple of quick questions here. So one of your requirements for the, as you're working with the AUL there is to do a soil management plan. Is that something that you're aware of, number one, I guess?
From what I gather from all, because that was really the big thing I got after first to see if I was interested in this. I'm not aware that any management needs to be done. We had a reliance letter done from the bank. They did the site phase 1 report to finalize everything. And the bank had their third party, and a few people went through it. So from what I understand, there's really no, if we ever want to excavate or do something like that, we need to go through the proper steps to make sure that it's done properly. But I'm not aware that there's anything else we need to do to keep monitoring the issue.
So if you did need to do that, who actually creates and is responsible for monitoring that soil management?
Well, I think
Like
when you
an
go to get a
in-house
building
thing?
permit, I think that's when that would come up, and then you'd have to prove and show where it was going, and it would all have to be well documented.
Okay, because I mean, part of that is containing dust that might affect, workers and so on and so forth, so obviously you.
So the report said that the levels that are there are not, they're well below the levels that they would consider.
That's what
to
they
be
all
hazardous.
say.
Okay.
They all say.
Yeah, but.
Okay. Listen,
But again, I know I could say I don't, but like, I'm really looking with my type of business, and having a piece of land to run a business on is very hard to come across these days in a location that
no,
will
perfectly
allow for
understood. I
it.
think it's a great location for that. So, but let me ask you this question. So the two structures on there, the garage and the residential unit, like my understanding is one of them you can just turn into like a field office there. I assume that's going to be the existing single family?
Correct.
And then the garage is coming down, or?
No, garage is where we'll, work on stuff that needs to be worked on, or,
Okay,
things
because
like
they're
that.
both existing
They're both,
non-conforming,
yeah.
right?
I don't think the garage is non-conforming, is it?
Garage is conforming.
Was it, both of them?
The single-family home is pre-existing non-conforming. I don't know the full extent of the construction of the garage, but if it's a garage with an office, then it's likely a conforming building
Yeah,
in an
the house
industrial
is
district.
non-conforming.
I was just curious because I don't know what those buildings have for current utilities, you know what I mean? Do you need underground, do you need sewage connection?
So the house is tied into the town water and sewer.
Okay.
And the garage has water, and it's tied into an old septic, which I'm
So you
assuming...
need to tie into sewer there?
I'm assuming it's not going to pass, but I don't need that. I have the office for a bathroom. So,
Okay.
and there is a Y connection off the street that they did put in case we did ever want to tie in to the town sewer
Sure,
for the
sure.
garage, but...
Well, that in and of itself, the sewer connection would mean that you would have to do some excavation there, which would implement your soil management plan.
Yeah, I'm not sure that area where it would be run would be under the existing pavement that has been there, so I'm not sure that area would be compromised. Obviously, we'd have to confirm that, but...
Okay. And then just give me a second here, because I just did have a couple more quick questions for you. And I know fire department was okay pretty much with everything with your storage of your wood and so on and so forth. But they did want to make sure that you were stirring your mulch.
Yeah, we had a great conversation.
Create the heat and so on and so forth.
Correct.
Is that actually, can that combust if you
It
don't do
can,
that,
but when
or-
you hear about it, it's these places that are selling it to us that have
Yeah.
20, 30, 40,000 yard piles.
Sure.
We go through it so quick that it's constantly being
You're
rotated
constantly turning it over,
anyways,
yeah. Okay.
And then some of the other stuff, like, we'll just rotate on our own because, like, if it gets too warm, you'll lose the coloring and then you're not selling a good product. So we take measures before it's a heat issue,
Yeah.
just for quality control.
So one of the recommendations was to create update the plans to show a pedestrian walkway in between the two buildings, I guess. And it seems like a little kind of an odd situation there, but I guess, was that your recommendation?
So strict adherence to the zoning bylaw for site plan review requires that access is laid out. That is something that the board has the ability to waive should they see fit. I would really recommend allow the applicant to go through, respond to all of the comments as they see applicable, and then you can generate, based on my review and TEC's review, a list of requested waivers for anything you don't think is applicable or you would like to ask the board for relief from.
And just to add to that, when someone does come in, they would either pull up and see the guy would just drive up to their vehicle and my guy running the loader, if they're just going to write what they're picking up in the book, or if they were going to walk into the office, they would pull up over to the office and go to the office and back to the truck, so there is no walking.
Yeah, okay. And I wouldn't have a problem waiving that, by the way, if that ever becomes an issue.
Appreciate that.
And then the parking minimums are not yet determined, so that's something you guys are still working on to identify some parking?
Yeah, we have plenty of room to have them there.
It's just not on the plan yet.
It's on the plan. So we calced it out at about, I think it was 17 required, or 16 required, and 15 spaces within our property, not including the existing spaces that are currently out there on the town land. Based on some of the comments, we're probably going to refine that a little bit. Those were based on, the footprint of the house and the footprint of the existing garage. Things like, we use the entire footprint of the house. There's an existing garage on the house. We're going to maintain the garage for parking. So that won't necessarily be office space. So some of those numbers, the required numbers, will come down. One of the comments that we'll address, like Alex said, it's a long list, so don't really want to sit here all night, go through them all, but one of the comments about the parking, we need a couple extra spaces that are not there now. There's an existing concrete pad coming off the back of the garage that we're hoping just to stripe and leave as is. I know typically parking is paved and not concrete, so that might be a waiver that we'd be interested in hearing the board's opinion on. But other than that,
Okay, so you have a little work to do to kind of.
Correct,
Yeah,
but
to
we don't,
kind of
we don't foresee
nail down the number,
any,
an accurate parking space plan.
we
Okay.
don't
That-
foresee
that's-
any anything that's going to prevent us from getting there.
Sure, that's fine.
Yeah.
And then signage, are you going to put a sign up on the buildings, or?
Just on the front of the building.
Okay, so is that something you're going to try to include on your next trip back, or down the road somewhere? Or are you going to do that on a separate?
I think probably on a separate sign permit after the fact.
And then, as far as turning you guys clearly understand that once you, revert that single-family home to an office space, that can never be turned back into a residential unit there?
Correct.
Okay.
Be on my best behavior at home.
Yeah. Okay. All right, I think that's all I really have right now, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Champa? Excuse me. I'm sorry, Mr. Lozada, let's try to start it the other way.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think my colleagues asked a lot of the same questions I had here. I did hear you mention that you've been to conservation a couple of times, and you made some changes to the, to the retaining wall there in the back. Are these plans that we have, I see November 11th is the date on them. Do those reflect those changes, or are they going to get?
No, you could actually,
Excuse me.
You're going to have to grab the microphone because you're set up over here, but, oh, okay, that's fine.
So this is a current representation of the plan that we presented to the Conservation Commission last week. You can see the difference where there's a lot more jigs and jogs now as we're kind of, running along the wetlands line. The original design, we were hoping to fill in so we could kind of square off. It works a little bit better for the bins to be squared. We also, we relocated as many bins as we could, so we're not directly storing along the bins, along the wetlands line. We added some of these bins that come perpendicular off of the permanent wall. That way we're not storing right up against the wetlands. Conservation had some concern about material kind of going over the back wall. We expressed to them that, it's not in our best interest to be losing material. We want to sell the material. So, relocating these bins as best as possible, adding more bins along the property line, running along the existing industrial building on the right side of the plan. And like I said, kind of coming off so we're not storing up against the wetlands. So this is the current plan in front of Conservation. Like I said, just the way the deadlines worked. We haven't resubmitted yet to you guys. We certainly will be. Our end goal is to make sure everyone's got the same set of plans in town. So hopefully we'll get there.
All right, yeah, that's definitely a little more jagged than the.
Yes.
Yeah,
the
and
ones we're looking
the
at
reason
here.
for it is, these larger trucks making deliveries, when we lost the squareness, we could really understand where the truck would swing to like get into the bins and make these. It kind of gives you where sometimes that extra space is just needed. And we also, so a lot of that, especially on the top half on the left-hand side, is kind of where I envision a lot of front end of the truck kind of swinging to get into the top right corner, things like that. And we do also carry rubble mulch, which comes on pallets. We have about 30 pallets of those. So, kind of just put those in places and out of the way so they're not getting hit by the vehicles, things like that. So those nooks and crannies, as funky as they look, they come in handy.
Well, as long as you guys can make it work.
Yeah.
And so everything inside of this kind of perimeter here, it's asphalt millings, it's kind of.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. Let's see. I think the only other question I had, there's all kind of like, it seems like there's a number of existing sheds and existing things outside of the garage in the main house. Is the intention to keep all
Yeah,
of
there's
them?
one that's a concrete foundation, like a whole concrete unit, actually, where if I had a use for it, I wouldn't be quick to get rid of that one. But the ones that look, don't look all that great, I don't have, I joke with people that I have OCZ for a Zwicker. It just drives me crazy, so I would definitely clean it up and try to keep things looking as neat as possible.
Okay, so some of these would potentially be coming down then?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I would assume most of them.
All right, great. And then just one other question. The entrance is right to the right of the garage here, right? Like there's those two little, looks like they're gates?
Yeah, there's actually a gate on both sides of the garage,
Okay,
but the main gate is on the right-hand side.
okay. And on the left-hand side, it looks like there's parking there, right? So customers could potentially park in front of that?
Correct. On both sides.
Yeah.
The right sides are more, reserved spaces, employee spaces,
Did it
cars
go
that can
through,
move.
kind of, I see you have the two spaces marked there in front of the garage, that say reserved parking?
Yep.
Did it go through there, or is the gate kind of I see there's two like parallel striped
The
lines?
gate's a little bit more to the right. That's kind of the start of the gate.
Okay.
Which I think is why those are, reserved. Those would be employees, people that were not parking and then driving all day. Those would be people on site that, if you needed them to move with their cars, they'd be there to do so.
All right, great. Yeah, I think that's all my questions for now.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to go through the TEC stuff, because you guys address it. If you're addressing them all, then we don't have to discuss them at all. Whatever gets, iffy, that's what we'll discuss. Otherwise, we're talking about stuff that you're going to say, I'm okay with it. And there's really no point in doing that here tonight. I will, of course, note my applauding of your intent to move from the town that shall not be named to Tewksbury. So that's good.
Yeah.
I always think that's good. So everybody else hit on the other stuff that would have been worth discussing tonight, so I'm good with that. So with that, I will open it up to the audience. Any questions, comments, or concerns from anybody who's here this evening? Going once, twice? All right, bring it back to the board. What is the pleasure of the board?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, if I could just make one note. You mentioned there wouldn't be any excavating or soil movement in the AUL area, but if that septic tank does fail and you have to, and we don't allow for the replacement of septic tanks in Tewksbury, so you'd have to crush it and abandon it.
Yep.
So that, just something.
It's not, yeah, and that is that in the AUL? It's very close over to the side, because it's right next to the residential house, and the AUL didn't.
Yeah, I wasn't sure where the
didn't
tank
go-
was, so
yeah,
just to
neither
keep in
am I,
mind.
yeah. And if we did, it wouldn't involve any removing, it would be filling.
Yeah, I just mean like the soil disturbance that would be involved in
Okay,
crushing the
sure.
tank,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
to
yeah.
keep in mind.
Yep.
All right, so with that, again, what is the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we continue the hearing.
All right. A motion-
January 13th, is that good for you guys?
So we have a motion to continue to 7:05 on January 13th.
Second.
A motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy holidays, everybody.
True.
All right, that brings us to agenda item E, which is 485 Main Street. The petitioner has asked that that be continued to our next meeting, so I have a motion to continue that till 7 PM on January 13th.
So moved.
A motion made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimous. That brings us to correspondence, which we didn't have any of. And then that brings us to other business not known at the time of the posting of the agenda. Does anybody have any such?
Just one comment, Mr. Chairman. I had tried to reach out to Brian Dorrington about giving the board an update on some affordable housing issues we have in town. One being the 97 Florence Ave project, and the other one being the Soldier On project. I had pictures from both of them, but not having spoken with Brian directly, I didn't send them to him, but I hope to bring them to our next meeting so you guys can see the progress of the affordable housing money that was given to the different groups to promote the affordable housing.
Mr. Duffy, do you have one?
Mr. Chairman, and I would just like to wish all of my colleagues and their family a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. We'll see you in January, and wish you a safe and happy holiday for everybody and their families. And that goes for for our residents as well.
Very good. Echo the same. There is one thing, and this is just for sometime going into the future. I don't know which thing it is we have to change or if we can change it, but these permanent signs in front of places advertising for, they look like permanent signs because they're built like the signs for a business that
The
would be there.
flag, the floating flags there?
No, I don't have a problem necessarily with those because they're portable, meaning they should be able to come out pretty simply. These ones that look like legitimate signs, posts into the ground, and then they seem to be there for extended amounts of time, you know, to advertise for the sale of units or sale of property or whatever it is. I hate them. I don't like it. It's not like somebody sticking and I don't mean to do a plug for anybody, but a Century 21 sign in front of somebody's house that's there temporarily while you sell it and looks temporary. These things are going in, they're huge, and they look like the kind of signs we would normally have to approve to have in front of someone's business, and they're just planted out there. And I can't stand them. I think they look ridiculous, and they're more of an advertisement than they are about the piece of property they're on. So whatever it is that we need to do to amend, whatever it is we need to amend, please tell me what it is, and I'm going to ask that we propose it to be done at the next available town meeting, because it's making me insane. I'm fine with advertising the place that's looking to do, you know, sell the business or sell the lot or whatever it is. That's not what these are. These are advertisement signs more than they have anything to do with what it is that's being sold, rented, whatever. And I'm seeing it more, not less, and it's upsetting to me to see drive down Main Street and, you know, basically getting mini billboards for stuff. That doesn't seem to be in line with what the intent would be, even though they seem to qualify. So whatever it is we can do to propose something to put an end to that, I'm advocating for and would like to see us do.
Okay.
So, all right. Anybody else with anything else?
All set, Mr.
All right,
Chairman.
then I will take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
I have a motion made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
All those opposed, motion carries. Good evening. See you next time.